The laughter started before he even reached the table, soft at first, then sharper, like glass scraping against dignity. Everyone in the restaurant noticed the janitor the moment he walked in, his worn shoes squeaking slightly against the polished floor, his jacket clearly borrowed for the night, sleeves a little too long, shoulders a little too tired. He paused at the entrance, scanning the room with careful eyes that had learned, over years of being invisible, not to expect kindness. What he did not know was that this blind date had been arranged as a joke, a cruel experiment by co-workers who wanted entertainment more than empathy. And in that moment, as he took another step forward, no one expected the night to end in silence so heavy it would change every life in that room. Before the story unfolds further, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe kindness still matters, if you believe second chances can change lives, and if you believe that judging someone by appearances can cost us something far more valuable than pride. His name was Daniel, though few people ever bothered to learn it. He cleaned offices after midnight, emptied trash that overflowed with discarded dreams, and wiped fingerprints from glass walls that separated people with power from people like him. The blind date invitation had arrived unexpectedly through a co-worker's cousin who worked at the same corporate building he cleaned. They had said it was a chance to meet someone new, someone kind, someone who did not care about money or titles. Daniel almost said no. Years of quiet humiliation had taught him that hope was dangerous, but loneliness has a way of convincing even the most careful heart to take one more risk. He spent an hour scrubbing his hands, trimming his beard, and pressing his only decent shirt, believing, just for one night, that he might belong somewhere other than the shadows. Across the room, the group that had arranged the date watched with barely hidden amusement. To them, Daniel was a prop, a punchline, a way to make the woman they worked with laugh. She had been told her date was running late, that she should wait. When she finally noticed Daniel approaching her table with hesitant steps, confusion flickered across her face, followed by discomfort. The whispers spread fast, bouncing between wine glasses and designer handbags. Some people stared openly. Others smirked. No one intervened. Daniel felt the weight of every eye, the familiar heat of shame crawling up his neck, but he kept moving, because turning back would mean admitting that he was exactly what they believed him to be. He stood there, unsure whether to sit or apologize for existing in the wrong place. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the chair, and in that second, memories flooded him. Being laughed at in school for wearing donated clothes. Being ignored during job interviews. Being called invisible by a world that only noticed him when it needed cleaning. Tonight felt no different, except that it hurt more, because for once, he had allowed himself to hope. He quietly took his seat, spine stiff, eyes lowered, bracing for the humiliation he sensed was coming. What no one in the room realized was that this dinner was not just another corporate gathering spot. It was owned by the company's CEO, a man known for unpredictability and a sharp sense of observation. He often dined anonymously, watching people the way others watched screens, looking for truths hidden beneath rehearsed smiles. That night, he had arrived late and taken a seat at the back, unnoticed by most. From there, he saw everything. He saw the janitor's hesitation, the mocking glances, the subtle cruelty masked as humor. He recognized Daniel immediately, not by name, but by character. This was the man who always stayed late to help others, who returned lost wallets, who worked double shifts without complaint. A man whose silence was mistaken for weakness. The CEO stood up, and the shift in the room was almost physical. Conversations faltered. Laughter died mid-breath. He walked toward Daniel's table with steady steps, his presence commanding attention without effort. The mockery froze, replaced by confusion and then fear. When he reached the table, he stopped and looked around, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. In that quiet, something changed. The joke was no longer funny. The power dynamic reversed, exposing cruelty in its raw form. Without raising his voice, the CEO acknowledged Daniel, not as a janitor, but as a human being deserving of respect. He spoke about integrity, about how character reveals itself in moments when no one thinks it matters. He made it clear that what he had witnessed was not harmless fun, but a reflection of values that had no place in his company or his world. Faces drained of color. Smiles vanished. The woman at the table looked at Daniel differently now, seeing not embarrassment, but strength in the way he sat through humiliation without bitterness. Daniel wanted to disappear, but he also felt something unfamiliar rising in his chest. It was not pride, exactly, but validation. For the first time, someone with power had seen him fully and chosen to stand beside him. The CEO spoke of Daniel's work ethic, of quiet kindnesses no one bothered to notice, and of how dignity is not granted by titles, but by actions. By the time he finished, the room was silent, not from shock alone, but from shame. The evening ended differently than anyone expected. The laughter never returned. Some people left early, unable to face what they had participated in. Daniel remained seated, unsure how to process what had just happened. He had arrived prepared to be humiliated and leave unnoticed. Instead, he left with something far more valuable than an apology. He left with the knowledge that his life had meaning beyond the mop and bucket, beyond the jokes and whispers. In the weeks that followed, changes rippled quietly. Daniel was offered opportunities he never imagined, not as charity, but as recognition. More importantly, he walked differently. His shoulders straightened. His eyes met others without apology. He still cleaned floors, still worked hard, but now he carried himself with the certainty that his worth was not defined by how others treated him on their worst days. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on how easily we judge and how deeply our actions can wound or heal, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more hearts that need reminding. And before the ending, here is a special request for you. Comment below with one word that represents what this story made you feel, because your words matter more than you know. Daniel never sought revenge, never demanded apologies. His victory was quieter and more powerful. He chose kindness without bitterness, dignity without arrogance, and resilience without resentment. And somewhere in that restaurant, long after the tables were cleared and the lights dimmed, the silence that once held cruelty transformed into a lesson no one would ever forget.